Welcome to part 4 of this mini-series talking about the history of Thorpe Park. This time we're going to go through 2010 to 2019. I can't even speak properly. You know the drill, you know what's going to be in here. We'll have maps, we'll have rides, we'll have celebrities, we'll have marketing, we'll have adverts, Fright Nights, the whole shebang. Now we start off with a new attraction in the form of Saw Live the Maze. Now this was in the old Thorpe Bell. It was an all year round scare maze and it had numerous iconic scenes from the franchise. It was a little bonkers, again, park marketing, just odd. They had a little bit of a competition where they paid guests £500 to find the most pungent urine so that the maze was authentic. Now the park also painted stealth to the England flag because, you know, they wanted to support the England football team. And they added a stage into the arena, so there's no if you watched the previous episode, they like a BMX bike and a motorbike. But they actually, this time they had a stage where they had Britain's Got Talent group Flawless performed multiple times a day. There was other acts in there as well. There was a contortionist, there was acrobats, there was an escapologist, etc. And also, there was a one-off appearance from Peter Andre. Yeah, so that didn't last very long, and there was a new show called What's the Worst That Can Happen. It was sponsored by Rustlers, you know, the guys that do the microwave burger things. So with motocross bikes, quad bikes, super bikes, cars, there's a recurring theme here. I find this one interesting. So there was a game show that was set, now if you've watched the Alton Towers series, there was a game show set in Alton Towers for a period as well. It was a kids game show. This one was a little different. This was a game show where they had celebrities on and it was called Scream If You Know the Answer. It was hosted by Duncan James, and basically the premise of this was celebrities would go on the various roller coasters and be asked questions and they had to answer them whilst going around the rides. Interesting concept. Some of the guests included Katie Price, Anthea Turner, Caroline Flack, John Barrowman, Edwina Curry, and many more. There's a TV, so I found a clip from the 5 o'clock show where Vernon Kay took a 71-year-old woman to Thorpe Park and then took her on stealth.
Look, that's it there. That's stealth. Yeah. Right, I'll go in first and I'll hold your hand. Come on.
I'm glad you're with me, Vernon. I am really.
So moving into 2011, we got another attraction. This time it was Storm Surge. Now this was like well, it's still there to this day. You know what it is. It's like a small rapids, kind of. It's almost like if there was a traveling fair version of rapids, this would be it, basically. Because it's kind of got a lift hill and then a sort of rapids down a chute thing. This, interestingly, was originally in Florida. So this was bought from Cypress Gardens, because Marilyn bought the attraction, and they've now turned that into Legoland, I believe. And this was there, so they pinched it and brought it to Thorpe Park. And of course it wouldn't be a new attraction without a new advert.
What is this? A spinning fool? Well, my friend, for thrills, get a load of these. Yeah, he's spinning faster, but without water, it's not Storm Surge. He's down! Storm Surge, you at Thorpe Park. Thrill out.
And speaking of new attractions, the park started teasing that something was coming the following year. Definitely, I mean, as I said in the previous decade, the park was just investing like mad and adding new rides left, right and centre. So in 2011, there was a Roman actor called Les Coogan who was going around and he was going on about the end of the world and, you know, we're all doomed and all this kind of stuff. There was also a website and a Twitter account, LC12, that was kind of came out, and it was again talking about this end of the world. We obviously know what's going to happen next year, but we'll get to that in a minute. We also got a new scare maze. This was called Experiment 10. Now, this was weird because when you went into this attraction, groups were split up and put into different rooms. And then you did meet again in the finale, which was kind of a loud strobe lit finale. Interestingly, there was another TV show in Thorpe Park in 2011, and that was Embarrassing Bodies. Never really understood that show. I mean, if you're too embarrassed to go to the doctor, why would you broadcast your problems on national TV? Don't get it. Now, I don't know if this is connected to the Embarrassing Bodies or not, but in 2011, the park did, again, Alton Towers did this as well, but the park released some condoms that were themed after, or branded, themed. They were in packaging for some of their major coasters. So 2012, we now know, obviously, was the Swarm. This was the UK's first wing coaster. Fantastic ride, I absolutely love this ride. And it obviously got a marketing campaign and an advert to go with it.
Thorpe Park.
Now, from what I've read online, and please let me know in the comments if this is correct, if you remember this. From what I've read online, for the first couple of years there was onboard video. Now, I've been on a few rides over in Spain where they've got on-ride video, and as well as getting your photo, you can choose to have a full-length video of you going all the way around the attraction. It's not there today, so I don't know how long it lasted, but if you remember that, please let me know in the comments below. I also found a picture of Cara Delevingne and Jamie Winston on the ride, so again, said I'd find celebrities. There they are. So there's more random ones here. Just these decades are just a little bit strange. Apparently, the park suffered from a lot of drunk students during Freshers Week. I don't think that's as big a thing anymore. I think, the younger generation are a little more sensible. But, back then, Freshers Week, lots of drinking, lots of drunk people, and allegedly there was lots of students who would turn up at the attractions and, well, their stomach couldn't handle it, shall we say. So apparently the park was breathalyzing people, except rather than turning them away or suggesting they don't do anything, they were being suggested to go on Swarm, because apparently a blast of fresh air in the face, that sobers you up. Obviously a marketing campaign for the launch of this new ride, but yeah, that's a weird one. I really do wonder who comes up with these records. The way to get a new record these days is just be completely bonkers and do something nobody else has done, because you're guaranteed to get it. So Dr. Pepper, on site in Thorpe Park, got a record for the most people in a pair of underpants, as in one giant pair of underpants. There was a new maze added for Fright Nights, and it was called The Passing. This was the first time the park had charged for a maze, and it was only £3 back then. Obviously, if you've done the mazes and towers, etc., well, they're no cheap. I've not done any of the ones in Thorpe Park, so I'm assuming that they're also paid. It'll certainly be more than £3 if they are. It had some new tricks, but it was not particularly redoable, as in, if you've done it once, you kind of know those tricks, and so, there wasn't that. It's not re-rideability, but you couldn't repeat this maze and still get a surprise or a different experience. It was a little odd because there was chunks of the ride that were, there was chunks of the maze that were pitch black, and yet throughout it you wore a sack over your head. Like, they didn't need to turn the lights off, or they didn't need to put the, I don't know why they did both. That's weird. So for 2013, the park's indoor coaster X:/No Way Out was changed. It was rebranded to just simply X. The trains were flipped because previously the whole ride was backwards. So this time the ride actually went in the normal direction, it went forwards, and as a result, they didn't have to have as many brakes. So previously it would stop and trim brakes and all that sort of stuff. They were all removed, and some additional lighting was added. So the park decided, after 1 year of operation, the park decided as a little gimmick. I don't know if maybe the ride wasn't quite as big a success as they thought it was going to be, but in 2013, the back 2 rows of Swarm were flipped so that you were facing backwards. And I think that, there was a slogan like "Dare to ride backwards" or something along those lines. This only stayed for 2 years, as far as I can tell, and obviously now the ride's back to normal where it's the right way around. But for a short period of time, you could ride Swarm in reverse. We got more bikes, guys. We got more bikes. So in the arena this year, we had Animal BMX Tour and Storm Freerunning. Now, this might seem odd now because it's fairly common that most parks, probably all parks, have accommodation, but 2013 was when Thorpe Park first dabbled with it. And at that point, it was called Crash Pads. They brought a third party in to do this. It was a sort of a trial, and that's kind of why, well, they're still there to this day. They're called shark cabins, but they're basically just shipping containers that were brought in. But in that first year, it was called Crash Pad. Now, the park had proposed a full-size hotel, and I'm pretty sure that the council approved it. 11 years later, it still doesn't exist, so curious to see if we'll ever get a hotel. And actually, the rumour has it that shark cabins are due to expire in 2024. So, are they going to go? Are we going to get a hotel? Are they going to extend them? Guess we find out next year what happens. Now, Fright Night's got a massive shake-up in 2013 because they partnered with Lionsgate, and that brought a whole host of franchises over with it. So we had Blair Witch Project, which was along the old Canada Creek Railway. There was Cabin in the Woods, which was a kind of free-form maze, so you could experience over and over again, go through different rooms and different doors. So that one was very, very kind of repeatable. There was My Bloody Valentine, and then there was quite a lot of Roman actors around. Not sure if it was called You're Next, but there was definitely signs saying You're Next, and these guys were going around like masks on and probably chainsaws and all sorts of stuff. Okay, so that's all the new mazes, but one of the existing mazes was a little bit controversial this year. Or at least made its way into the news, and that is the Asylum. So I'd been kicking around for a few years. You may remember from the last episode, it's about 2005 that the Asylum came in. 2013 turned out to be its final year because a petition was created. I think it got about 6,000 people to sign. Basically, it's a mental asylum and people going around with chainsaws. So there was a few people that thought there was too much stigmatism associated with that and mental health, and petition was started, and the park did not bring Asylum back in 2014.
It's got mental patients and they're being shown to be chainsaw-wielding maniacs. That's not a fair representation of mental illness.
2013 got itself an advert.
Thorpe Park presents The Sounds of Summer. The sound of family fun. The sound of friends together. The sound of everyone in harmony. Be part of the Sounds of Summer at Thorpe Park. Book online for under £25.
So we got into 2014, and this was another busy year for the park. So I mentioned previously that the cabins, the Crash Pad, were renamed to Shark Cabins, so that happened. We also got Angry Birds Land. Now, the Detonator ride was rethemed, the 4D cinema was rethemed and played Angry Birds, and we got a new set of dodgems. These are called King Pigs Wild Hog Dodgems. Thankfully they're now just called Big Easy Bumpers, because that's a mouthful for a set of dodgems. For Easter there was an Angry Birds themed event. There was prizes, there was, how many? There was something like 20,000 Easter eggs or something available, and potentially you could win an annual pass as well. Now, some of you might remember a show on Sky One called Brainiac. It was like a science show thing. It had a live show in Thorpe Park this year, and there was a little teaser trailer for it. Nowadays, when we think of Thorpe Park, we obviously think of the branding an island like no other, but actually 2014 was the first time they used that tagline. The park experimented a little bit in 2014 with a virtual queue system, and it was called Reserve and Ride. Now, it was free to use, and effectively you would say, I want to go on this ride. It would say, right, come back in X minutes time, etc. It wasn't particularly well received, and obviously, as we know, it doesn't exist to this day, so the park does not have virtual queues. From what I can tell though, that sounds, of the virtual queue systems that are out there, and I'm looking at Disney, theirs is an absolute nightmare, because you've got this mad panic at certain times of the day where you've got to try and book a slot and then you have no idea when you're coming back. This one, on the other hand, seems more like, I don't want to stand 50 minutes in that queue, I'll press a button on my phone, I can go and do something for 50 minutes and then walk on the ride. That kind of virtual queue, personally, I quite like. But it doesn't sound like it was particularly popular, so I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you like virtual queues? Did you experience this virtual queue? And do you think they should still have a virtual queue? I said earlier that the Angry Birds thing in Easter, they were giving away annual passes. They were also doing this, they had this thing called the Ribcage Challenge, and it was kind of like a man versus food thing. So if you could consume 4 racks of ribs, 4 lattice fries, some coleslaw and some salad in 30 minutes, you would get your money back. So you had to pay 20 quid to enter this. You would get your 20 quid back, you would get a t-shirt, and you would also get an annual pass. I don't think many people won. There was another incident this year. There was a girl who was on Logger's Leap, and it's believed that the ride-up crammed too many people in. Basically, she was right at the front, and she's ended up with severe nerve damage because her knees were crammed right under the front. So, yeah, not good. Not good. There's one new Scare Maze for 2014, and that was Studio 13, which was meant to be a behind-the-scenes tour of a horror movie. Here's the 2014 advert.
There's an island not so far away. An island with its own landmarks, speed limits, and weather conditions. It's got its own language, delicacies, and laws of physics. It's even got its own wildlife, with new Angry Birds Land and 4D cinema experience. This is Thorpe Park Resort, an island like no other.
If you're enjoying this episode, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing. I'd be much appreciated. Let me know your memories from this decade. If there's anything here that you really miss. I mean, I'm pretty sure, apart from horror mazes, most of it still exists because it's only a few years ago. But let me know if there's anything that you miss. Also, if anything I've missed, I mean, I've tried to do my best to get everything, but I might have missed something, so let me know. But let's keep going with the rest of it. Now, 2015 was the year that Ant and Dec came to the park. Not literally, I mean, they've done that before, you've already seen that. But this was the year that we got the I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here maze. And rather than me explain it, well, let them explain it.
There's an island not so far away.
An island with its own landmarks.
Weather conditions.
And now, its very own jungle.
Where you can face your very own bush tucker trial.
Take on the Chamber of Horrors.
Get hands-on in the Holy Moly Wall.
And conquer the celebrity cyclone to be crowned king or queen of the jungle.
The I'm a Celebrity maze comes to Thorpe Park Resort, an island like no other.
The park also hosted Island Beats, and this was a series of concerts, including The Vamps, Little Mix, Rizzle Kicks, Professor Green, Conor Maynard, Union J, and many more.
You're getting to be my one desire. You're getting to be all that matters to me.
One of the things I love about theme parks, and they're slowly starting to get more and more common these days, is behind the scenes tours. And in 2015, Thorpe Park started doing that. They had Colossus, they had Stealth, and they had Swarm. It's interesting when you see this, because there's a photo of behind the scenes on Swarm, where there's a panel that has all the different effects, like the fire engine and all the helicopter and all that sort of stuff. A lot of those effects don't run, and I don't know if they're broken or if somebody just forgets to push all those buttons. Jamie Lang from Made in Chelsea visited the park. He didn't seem to be a fan of roller coasters. I'm certainly not off the Swarm.
Are you ready for this?
No, I'm not ready for this.
Shut up, Jesse, just stop talking for a minute.
So for Fright Nights, so I'm a Celebrity had taken over some of the space that was previously used for Fright Nights. So they put up a couple of giant marquees and they had an attraction called the Big Top. However, it seems that the tents and the space between it wasn't the scariest of attractions. It stuck around for a while, so I'm pretty sure they fixed these problems, but in that first year, doesn't sound like it was the best. So moving on to 2016, we got a new attraction, and this time it was Derren Brown's Ghost Train. This was an interesting one because, I mean, the park was trying to do something different, right? I mean, a ghost train's a ghost train, and obviously they were trying to do something a little bit unique. They brought VR into it. I didn't experience the VR version of it. Actually, I still haven't experienced the new version. I'm hoping to do that in a couple of weeks' time. But I didn't get on this, and it seems like it wasn't particularly popular. I know VR tends to get hammered by enthusiasts as not being great. I've experienced it once in Fantasialand on Crazy Bats, and it was amazing. This, from what I've heard, is not. It was problematic, the technology wasn't great, you know, it caused ride downtime, all sorts of stuff. So yeah, they tried something new. So I mean, this is normally where I'd say it's a brand new ride and it got an ad. It did, but there's two different ads. There's this ad that you might have seen.
Let me take you on a journey. That will make you wonder, is your mind playing tricks on you? Or are my tricks playing on your mind? A ghost train like no other. My ghost train. Derren Brown's Ghost Train, only at Thorpe Park Resort.
And then there was another one that got banned. So it was meant to air on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, but it was deemed too scary. So it didn't happen. If you are somebody that's easily scared, probably skip on the next 30 seconds.
Merry Christmas, everyone. Merry Christmas, everyone. Merry Christmas, everyone. Merry Christmas.
For Fright Night this year, they brought out a campaign called Vote With Your Guts, and they were basically asking you on social media to decide which of 3 previous mazes were going to come back. I found a promo teaser for the freezer. I don't know if the other 2 had them. If they did, I can't find those. But potentially they always knew that the freezer was going to be the one that won, so that's the only one that had a promo.
My name's Terry, and I'm from the freezer. I haven't been in my freezer for over a decade. I've been working in an ice cream van. It's got its ups and its downs. The downs being that I can't fit the bodies into the van. I've been checking my phone every day for the past few months, and nothing is happening. Fright Nights 2016 would mean the absolute world to me and my freezer to come back just for one last year. So if you want to see the freezer one last time, I suggest you go voting.
This was also the first year that we got a much loved attraction in the form of Platform 15. Now, this obviously stuck around for a while, and you know, I mean, I've heard about it myself, so it is definitely become a popular scare maze. The first version, however, not so much. So, I mean, the concept's pretty straightforward, right? It goes along the old Canada Creek Railway. But from what I've read about the first version of it, there was too much dead space, there was batching issues, it just wasn't great. Like, there wasn't enough scares, and it was too quiet, basically. It wasn't much of a scare maze. So moving on to 2017, and we start with, so IMAscore did an entire soundtrack for the park. Now, there's many theme tunes that we all associate with the park. You probably hear them on a lot of the adverts going forward. There's a particular tune that is synonymous with Thorpe Park, but that's less than a decade old, because prior to 2017, it wasn't their theme tune. And from an attractions point of view, there was nothing substantial. I mean, there was a couple of little kids rides. So we got the Timber Tug boat, and we got Lumber Jump. Derren Brown from the previous year, I mean, as I said, it wasn't the best, but they did something to try and refresh it in 2017, so they brought out Derren Brown, Rise of the Demon, and this one got a new ad. This one wasn't banned though.
Who's there?
Don't worry. This is your stop. Rise of the Demon on Derren Brown's Ghost Train, only at Thorpe Park Resort.
Now you might remember 90s, I think it was, one of the previous episodes. The park did a couple of events when they were run by Two Swords. In fact, the year that Two Swords took them over, they did an event where they stayed open for 24 hours. Well, it wasn't quite 24 hours, but in 2017, there was an event where the park teamed up with Ministry of Sound and they stayed open from 8 PM till 3 AM. Now, they actually had the rides open as well, but the rides closed at 11 o'clock. But that was still late night riding, which I'm pretty sure everybody that's watching this video loves getting on the rides in the dark. I don't know if any of you will have seen this, but I did a video a few months back for Blackpool, the big one, because I did it last year. I did it a little bit early because it's its 30th anniversary this year, and I had a video with 30 facts. I'll put it up there if you like Blackpool and you want to watch it. But one of the facts was that there was a YouTuber who broke into the park and scaled the big one. Well, the same person decided to break into Thorpe Park and scale Stealth. Funnily enough, he's not allowed back in UK theme parks.
So today I got this letter from Merlin Entertainment, so the people that own Thorpe Park, and basically stating that this letter is to formally notify you that due to your recent trespass and associated unsafe activities at Thorpe Park Resort on Wednesday the 26th of July, you are now excluded from all Merlin Entertainment's attractions globally. Oh Jesus, it's not just in the UK, globally. Oh dear.
Now the park started releasing like end of season wrap-up videos, and in that there is a little bit of footage of Dermot O'Leary and Nicole Scherzinger on Stealth. So we got two new scare mazes, both themed around The Walking Dead. That ride doesn't exist yet, but as I mentioned previously, they teamed up with Lionsgate, so we're bringing a lot of franchises in. So we got a couple of Walking Dead scare mazes. And then the other one we got for Fright Nights was Final Cut Cinema, which showed a series of horror movies. Right, so it's now 2018 and The Walking Dead the ride is a thing. So X No Way Out became X, which then became The Walking Dead the ride. Same ride basically, obviously just rethemed. Now from what I've heard, this is another one I've not been on. I've only been to Thorpe Park a handful of times and not had a great success with rides, so I haven't been on this one yet. I believe it did have a lot of scare actors in the queue line, and that isn't the case now, or it's certainly significantly scaled back. Let me know. I mean, I'll find out in a couple of weeks, but... So they launched this ride with a bunch of celebrities. It's the typical thing, you know, big new ride, let's get some people in, do some media. So here's a selection of celebs and what they thought of The Walking Dead, the ride.
I'm actually really nervous. These things really scare me and I don't know why.
I'm approaching it with great trepidation, I have to say.
What you bit? What you bit?
There's an advert for this one, but it's not the advert you're thinking of, because Pepperami did a promo this year where they, actually maybe it wasn't this year, Pepperami did a promo where you were getting tickets for Thorpe Park, and specifically Animal, you may remember Animal, he went on The Walking Dead the ride, so here's his advert.
The sounds are just right. The lighting is perfect. Oh, I do like having people round some bite to eat.
Terrify a friend for free. 2-for-1 entry to Thorpe Park with promo packs of Pepperami.
Come on, what are you made of?
There was a bit of an incident this year with one of the attractions. So Vortex, the KFG afterburner, gyro-y, swingy thing, a little bit of that fell off. I was captured on, somebody had a camera and captured it. Now Merlin released a statement and they say, we can confirm that on Saturday a piece of foam from the back of one of the chairs on Vortex detached whilst the ride was in operation. This was a non-critical part of the ride and came from a chair that was out of service during the ride's operation. Vortex was promptly stopped whilst further checks took place and reopened 15 minutes later. That's quick. Now, 2018, there was a bit of a heat wave, and that kind of caused a power cut across the park, and many of the rides shut down, obviously, because, you know, they need a lot of power. So there's footage of people on Tidal Wave stuck on the lift hill. People were stuck on Nemesis for 20 minutes. It wasn't great. I mean, obviously not the park's fault, nothing they can do about it. They did, however, as a goodwill gesture, they activated their bad weather guarantee. Wasn't weather related. I suppose it was. Heat wave. Yeah, kind of. Anyway, they let you come back later on in the year for free. I've never heard of this restaurant chain, so I don't know if they don't exist anymore, or maybe they're just kind of a bit local to the area. But there was a restaurant chain called Sticky Sisters, which does wings and stuff. I mean, they still have a website, so I'm guessing they still exist somewhere. They opened in the park. They lasted a year. Now, from a Fright Night's point of view, this seems to be a bit of a mixed bag, because so one of the things that they added was Zombie Hunt. And this sounds like a cross between a Scare Maze and Laser Quest, because basically you went around with guns shooting zombies, which sounds like an interesting concept, to be honest, but as far as I'm aware is no longer a thing. The second one we got was Fanta's Twisted Carnival. Now, so guests were encouraged to try out various optical illusions involving mirrors and cameras before ending in a dark room for a finale. The finale was a large haunted Fanta vending machine that after a period of time spat out limited edition Fanta Orange. Yep.
Welcome to Fanta's Twisted Carnival. This way, don't be shy.
There was 2 other mazes added this year. One of them was called Dead Creek Woods, and the other one was called Vulcan Peak. From what I've read online, both of these were pretty weak, and I found the teaser for Vulcan Peak. I mean, it looks it. So we round out the 2010, anyway, 2019 with Bounce-Zilla. Basically they put a bunch of giant bouncy castles in the park for adults. They also added game effects. Now this was basically a series of consoles. They had the Xbox, they had the PlayStation in there, they had old PS2s, they had old GameCubes, they had N64s, and there was an upcharge VR experience for £5, I think it was. Another thing that was added in 2019 was Jungle Escape. You had a series of puzzles and things to do, and you would get these mysterious gems that came in handy in the finale. Sounds like a bit of a rip-off of the Crystal Maze to me. So another show that turned up in Thorpe Park was The Apprentice. 2 of the contestants went on, and one of them screams like a girl. Which, if you've ever seen me on a coaster, this guy. So after stretching themselves far too thin last year with Scare Mazes, they decided to scale back for 2019, and they went for quality over quantity this time, and we ended up getting Creek Freak Massacre. Now, this went on to be a much loved attraction. It was set in the old Loggers Leap station, which obviously is no more because Hyperia has taken that space. And the last 2 things that we got were, we got a live show outside of Stealth, this time Amity High Homecoming 59. And then we also got a VR experience, so we got The Dark Void. Now, as I said, it was a VR experience, kind of VR horror thing, provided by Player Ready Virtual Reality UK. And 2019 ended with an advert.
There's a place like no other. With language like no other. Days, nights, and fights like no other. Thrills and sleepovers like no other. And now the epic Bouncezilla, the brilliantly bonkers inflatable course that bites back. Thorpe Park Resort, alive like no other.
So there you go, that has been the tens. Sure. One more episode still to go, so if you've enjoyed this one, make sure you hit that like, hit subscribe. I have been Chris, you've been watching Coaster Dad, and I'll see you in the final episode. And the rest of them are here.